The following is a conversation between Matías De Stefano, referred to as me, and his higher self, referred to as I am. The date is December 15th, 2020, and the subject is the emotional aspect of the heart chakra in Sagittarius. Me. When I visited Israel in 2018 to film a part of The Rememberer, one of the places I visited was Mount Tabor, known as Mount of Transfiguration, near Nazareth. There we were going to film an explanation about what the Transfiguration means as a philosophical concept, but the audio equipment began to fail and I lost concentration. I started to feel bad. I felt lost, like I was doing something wrong. Suddenly, a strange sensation invaded me. I felt ridiculous. I thought, what am I doing? Am I really playing a documentary filmmaker? I'm exposing my face? For what? Am I willing to do this? Many thoughts that terrified and angered me at the same time. I took off the microphones and without saying anything, I went up the mountain until I lost sight of the film crew. I am. You would have wanted to be her, right? Me. Sometimes it seems that being an animal is easier, because one only concentrates on survival and not on transcendence. As humans, and especially those of us who are on the path of consciousness, transcendence seems something fundamental. And I was doing it, registering myself for posterity, telling my life and my way of thinking. But for that moment, the idea of survival invaded me. I don't know if I was willing to bear the weight of the world's gaze, to hold so many projections on me, and above all, I don't know if I was ready to generate said projections. Well, what others see in us in a certain way is generated by us. I wondered to what extent people's feedback to me was real or an echo of what I generated. How far my sharing expanded my I, my ego, and to what extent I shared my I am, my essence. From where the hate or love that people would express to me would be original, and to what extent would it be a mirror of what I projected? I felt too much responsibility because I recognized that it would be impossible to be neutral. No matter what I did, my ego and my essence would fluctuate like the waves of the sea, like a cold and warm current. And the whirlwind that would draw others to me would be caused by both forces. But I wanted a calm sea. At that moment, I considered leaving everything, shutting up, not going on. I am. And what happened? Me. He appeared, the king of justice, or in neutral words, the axis of balance. I am. Melchizedek. Who are you to judge what the divine has manifested in you? Me. He told me that he was putting a guilt on me that didn't exist yet, and that it would only be real if I turned it into my present truth. He led me up the mountain to a cave. The director and cameraman followed me like a National Geographic film crew following a deer through the woods to make a wildlife documentary. Silent and stealthily. They entered the cave with me into the darkness. There I sat down and took a stick that I had found, like a cane. Some time later I learned that they filmed that moment of connection and even put it in the documentary, at least a fraction of everything that happened, which is probably one of the most important in the entire documentary. I am. The mission conversation. Me. The only thing that makes us be a larva or a butterfly is a change of perspective, but you are both. The I and the am is only a verb. It is inevitable to live unconsciously and feed on the roots of the world, in darkness, perdition, conflict, disease, stopping, getting lost, mistrusting, frustrating, gorging yourself with emotions is inevitable. In the same way that larvae and worms must fill themselves with experiences, incessant until the moment they explode, and at that moment, when they reach the maximum of unconsciousness, the crisis occurs. I become an idiot, a prick, useless, waiting. but nevertheless that is where the magic is happening. Where everything I ate, swallowed, is transfigured. He told me that we don't need to belong to anyone or anything, that it's just us with the world, and that the world will make of us what we want of it. Me. He told me that right now I was on the idiot stage, cocoon, pupa, fearing the outside world, and that he could only spread my wings when he was ready to face myself, to recognize me, not as different, but as I really was, and then I wouldn't be afraid of what they might see in me, because I wouldn't be afraid of myself. I am. This was the moment of your atonement. Me. What is that? I am. It comes from the Latin ex, go towards or go out towards, and pius, honest or virtuous, plus the suffix tio, which means action. That is to say, take the action of going towards honesty. In the Last Judgment, according to the legend or myth, Melchizedek, which means the King of Justice, will judge people through the confession of their mistakes to honestly enter the kingdom of heaven. What this means is that only those who have been transfigured will be able to see the real essence of the cosmos. Those who have gone through the law of the axis, who have found their own coherence. Those who feel full of spirit, soul, and body. Me. When is the final judgment? I am. Always. Well, the cosmos has no end. The end refers to a limit, the echo of an action, the return of a movement, the descent or rise of a wave curve. Each step is building coherence, and honesty is not projected towards others, but towards oneself. The greatest honesty you can get is the one you give yourself, being honest with what you think, feel, and do. And if you find honesty in it, you will find yourself fulfilled. Me. That's what I felt after their conversation, which refined my 3 bodies. I felt fullness. I am. Fullness is the quality of being full, but with a little deeper insight. People tend to fill themselves with external things, such as the larva, the caterpillar, devouring everything in its path, knowledge, data, emotions, relationships, sensations, food, objects. Everything external is a karmic process of inevitable learning, and by overloading yourself with things, you have the feelings of being full. And even though your soul remains empty, you can feel it, so you need to keep filling it. When you eat a lot of chocolate, you are trying to fill a love void. When you eat a lot of fats and flours, you're trying to fill an economic space for fear of dying of scarcity. And some eat people emotionally, through relationships, looking in others for something they can't fill inside. Some accumulate like Diogenes, surrounding themselves with garbage, while others are stuffed with studies, data, information, for fear of not knowing, believing that the void is almost a sin. Thus, they are filled with external things that only generate weight, an unnecessary burden that sinks people. That is where you feared losing yourself, sunk by the burden of others, by the projection of believing that you are not enough and you need more to please others, when in reality you only wanted to please yourself, by making yourself feel good when it came to expressing yourself, like good job, patting your own back, yourself. Me, egocentrism. I am, and attachment. That is not living full, that is living full. So we're missing here a translation from the Spanish. Full of things that are not yours, but that you make your own for fear of simply being what you are. And that is what makes you a cocoon, the caterpillar that devours, unconsciously believing that this will make it whole. Now, this path is not bad. Well, the caterpillar will only be a butterfly for having submerged in said unconsciousness and said weight. Without it, he would never have been able to transfigure himself and fly lightly through the air. Me. So why do I see a certain negative connotation in living from that point of view? I am. Because there are human caterpillars that are unaware of their purpose of being butterflies and never stop eating and die on the ground because they cannot support their own weight. Me, I understand. I am. Transfiguration can only occur when the caterpillar stops seeking to be filled and recognizes that it must feel full. Fullness is lived from the heart, from balance. Fullness no longer seeks to be satisfied with the external, but to enrich itself with the internal. That is where the magic arises, the potential, where you transform the world. Me. When I left the cave, I got lost in the woods on purpose, feeling that fullness. I could feel my 3 bodies united, happy. And so I found the cameras trying to film an impossible sunset because it was cloudy and with a sadly winter tone. I remember that I felt omnipotent. In my fullness, I could feel everything, as if the world were only an extension of my body, as I was of the world. Bad day to film this, but hey, we already put the time-lapse, the director told me. What do you need? I asked in a way in which they did not recognize me as Matías, since it was obvious that it was not me. Magic, he told me. I nodded and walked a few steps further. I reached my hands flat towards the sky and gently twisted them as his would have grabbed the clouds, pushing the sky up and the earth down. At that moment, without ever seeing the sun, its apparent rays emerged in the distance, beginning to dye the sky pink from the furthest point up to us, which is the photo in this post. I turned to them and said, "Is that okay?" They both looked at me as if they had seen a ghost, not knowing what to say. I am. It's what has fullness. Unlike the incessant search, he does not wait, but rather does, because he knows that there is nothing outside that he needs, since everything outside is part of himself. Me. At that moment, I felt everything, as if I myself were the clouds, and the pulse of the sun was the beat of my heart. Fullness is felt when you feel part of the whole, and yet you don't need anything from it. And at that moment, I understood what Melchizedek told me. Transfiguration is the magic of turning unconsciousness into consciousness. It is recognizing that outside you will only see what you are, not what you expect to be. Therefore, I must be what I am. I am. I am who I am. Me. Yesterday in the pyramid, I could feel it. Lying on the sarcophagus, I felt that caterpillar. Heavenly Father's voice resounded, saying, "Die." And in that instant, I felt like I was broken. I cried like I don't remember having cried in many years, because I cried for everything and at the same time for nothing. There was no specific pain. I could only find these words. I'm afraid of being who I am. And there I faced this fear inside my chrysalis. In my moment of being an asshole, going through my uselessness, I let that part of Matías die. I let that fear die. I saw the eyes of the child that I was, that child who was happy and joyful, and at the age of 12 received the weight of all his memory, the responsibility of 12,000 years of history, and stopped being happy. I looked at him and said, "Look at me, we have made it. I have gone through it, you can be happy again." And then my future looked at me, and in my death I smiled. Don't be afraid to be who you are. Don't make the mistake of forgetting about yourself, I told myself. And all that weight that I felt, all those things and stories that I had fed and filled with until now, smeared with fear and responsibility, became fullness. My heart felt light, like never before. I felt freedom. I felt that it is not necessary to explain what I am or who I am to anyone, that it is enough for one person to know. Myself. I am. Welcome to life. Me. I am life. I am. I am the light. Me. I am the way. I am. I am the truth. Me. I am love. I am. I am fullness. Me. I am who I am.